Hi everybody, Chad Sarno here of Good Catch. Today we're going to be featuring our Good Catch salmon burger. We're going to be making salmon tempura udon in a shiitake broth. This is going to be so delicious, you guys. Stay tuned, you don't want to miss this. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. So the first thing we're gonna get started, okay, we're gonna make a shiitake broth. This shiitake broth is packed with umami flavor, all sorts of earthiness with the mushrooms, a little bit of ginger in there. We're gonna start a pot, get it on a medium to high heat. I'm gonna cut up some aromatics, so you can use shallot, you could use yellow, white onion, either way. You can use red onion, that works as well. I'm just gonna chop this up, I'm gonna peel. What we're going to do is we're making a flavorful broth, okay? So we're gonna get the pan nice and hot. Let's add some oil. Okay, coat the bottom with some oil. We're going to add some onions in there. Onions going in. All right, the next thing we're gonna add some garlic, okay? I'm not doing anything with these, just adding the garlic in there. Going to also add some shiitakes, okay? This is the base of it. We have fresh shiitake, okay? Which are absolutely delicious. And then we have dried shiitake, and I've hydrated these with a little bit of hot water. And whenever you use any kind of dried fruit, dried vegetable, what happens is you get a concentrated flavor, okay? So I like to use a combination of fresh and dried, or you can use just dried. I wouldn't waste just fresh on this recipe. But what I like to do is sear them up, and it's gonna extract all the flavor out of those dried mushrooms, all right? So I'm gonna reserve this liquid because the soaking liquid from the mushrooms is gonna be part of the broth, all right? So I have some dried shiitakes in there, and we will let these cook up. Medium to high heat, and you're gonna start seeing a bit of char, a bit of caramelization on the bottom of the pan as these cook. So you're first gonna pan fry them a bit with a little bit of oil with those aromatics. I'm gonna add some ginger in there also. All right, I'm just gonna do slices of ginger because this is going to be, again, strained. I'm also going to add half a jalapeno, okay? I like a little bit of spice in here, so I'm gonna add, just kind of slice it up, add half a jalapeno in there. All right, so this is all gonna cook. And what you're doing is you're bringing out what oil does and what heat does, dry heat does. It brings out all the essential oils, as well as the caramelization of the onions and of the sugars, but it also brings all those essential oils out of all the products that you're using. Okay, so it really brings out that sweetness, brings out really the flavor of all the ingredients. So I'm gonna cook this down until you start to see on the bottom of the pan, you're gonna get some coloration. That's the caramelization that you like. Then we're gonna hit it with water. We're gonna bring this up to a simmer for a little while, strain it, and that's our broth. It's gonna be so good, you guys. So while that's cooking, let's move on to the next step, okay? So I have some hot water. So at a lot of Asian markets, you can get frozen udon, okay? Udon is a very chewy wheat-based noodle, okay? It's an Asian noodle, a bit thicker. You can buy them in individually wrapped frozen cakes like this, which is really nice. You can make your own. You can use dried udon also. But what's nice about this is you just drop it in hot water, and then you can use it in any kind of stir fry. You can use it in soup and all of that, okay? So I'm just gonna drop these in hot water, strain them so the udon is good to go when we're ready, okay? So I'm just gonna drop those in. And this will just really be in there. You don't really have to cook them because they're already cooked. But I'm just gonna put these in here just for a couple minutes here until they actually start to break apart. And then I'll strain it. And you can see already that coloration on the bottom of the pan. That's exactly what you want. All right, so we're going to make some tempura batter. Tempura batter is a wheat flour. You can use a rice-based flour also. I'm gonna use a combination of wheat flour, all-purpose flour, and cornstarch, okay? So these are done, all right? This is all you have to do with these noodles, okay? Because these have just been sitting in the water and they've just separated, okay? I'm gonna strain this out, put them in a bowl and reserve them because when you pour hot broth over them, they'll be perfect. So I'm gonna strain that in just a second here. Before we make that tempura batter, you can see that coloration. So these have been cooking for a couple minutes. I'm gonna add the water to make that broth. And when you add liquid, so when you hear the term deglazing, it's basically adding a liquid, any kind of liquid, whether it's a flavorful liquid with a vegetable stock or any kind of wine or anything like that. Adding the liquid deglazes it, picks up all those sugars, okay? So that's what you want. Just gonna kind of scrape the bottom, make sure that all that gets picked up, and it kind of cleans the bottom of the pan. And then we're just gonna add all of this water here. All right, we're gonna bring that up to a boil. All right, so that udon has been strained. I'm gonna set this aside for when we serve, all right? So we have a whole line of Good Catch products, as a lot of you know, that really focus on simple swap outs, simple alternatives. And what we have here is we have a salmon burger. You can do the same thing with our classic fish burger. This is your semi-thawed, so I took this out of the freezer maybe 15 minutes ago. And I'm just going to set those aside because I'm gonna tempura the salmon, and it is gonna be so freaking good. What you can do if it is too thawed, because the salmon's quite high in fat, you can actually pop it in the freezer and it'll tighten that back up. And once you actually refreeze it, it doesn't have to go back in the freezer too long because of that fat content. But once you refreeze it, it's a lot easier to handle when you're dipping it in the tempura, okay? It's almost up to a simmer here. I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 main ingredients, all right? Super simple, all right? So you're sauteed the aromatics, I've added the mushrooms in there, I've added the water. I'm gonna next add some MIRIN and some TAMARI, okay? MIRIN is a seasoned rice vinegar. It's a sweet vinegar. I'm gonna add some TAMARI and some MIRIN. And when I first started making this recipe, I couldn't believe how much rice vinegar it actually took. And it seems like a lot, but the combination of those with the umami of the mushrooms and those aromatics in there, concentrate into a broth, it is so good. Paired with that udon, you guys gotta love this one. All right, so this is coming up to a simmer. I'm just gonna move it over to the next burner and get it going over here while we get the tempura batter, and we'll start heating up the oil, okay? So I have vegetable oil, peanut oil, either one works. I'm gonna make sure that this does not get higher than 350, all right? So what's important is for you to have a thermometer on hand. You do not want to get the oil too hot, because one, it's a hazard, right? But you also don't wanna burn the tempura. So we're gonna let this slowly get up to 350, okay? All right, in the meantime, let's make some tempura batter. So I have a bowl. Next, I have all-purpose flour, okay? You can use rice flour if you're gluten-free, that works as well. So I do about one plus cup, okay? And about a 1/4 to a 1/3 cup of cornstarch, okay? And then I have some salt. I like to add some sesame seeds in there too, okay? All right, so that is it, all right? Gonna make sure you stir that up. You wanna make sure that you add a bubbly water, and you want that bubbly water to be absolutely ice cold. Whenever I'm buying this, I will put this in the freezer right before I use it, and it is critical that it is ice cold. Why? It works way, way better. So I'm just gonna add that bubbly water. Okay, and you want it basically like a pancake batter, right? You don't wanna mix it too much because I don't want those bubbles out. All right, what the bubbles is gonna give, the reason I use bubbly water and not just a regular still water or tap water is to really give you that lacy texture that tempura has. So you can see here, that's a good consistency right there, all right? And what's nice about this, it can be forgiving, right? So if you need to add a little bit more flour, you can do that, a little bit more dry to really, if you added too much of the water, you can certainly add as you need. All right, let's set that aside. All right, so a couple things that we can serve up just to go really well with the salmon is I have some asparagus. You can use green beans as well. All right, I'll use those for something else, or you could toss them. And then I also have some NAPA cabbage, all right? So I'm gonna take the smaller pieces out of this NAPA. This will be a nice tempura as well. I want to make them consistent in size, okay? So I'm just gonna have a few of these leaves in here to tempura. So I had some restaurants over in Europe, and at my London restaurant, we used to do tempura shiso leaves, which was really, really nice. So you can see that this broth is boiling up. All right, and this is concentrating. And it's okay to let it boil for, 10 minutes, you can let it boil a little bit longer even. All it's doing is concentrating the flavors, okay? So we're gonna let this boil up. In total, once it comes to a boil, we're gonna let it boil for about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, okay? And then you remove it, we're gonna strain it. You can use some of those whole shiitakes to garnish. So let's see here. All right, so we're gonna give it another minute. So before I forget, this is the shiitake soaking liquid I'm gonna go ahead and add to that broth. Let's actually, before we get into tempuraing, let's strain this, okay? Because this broth is done, and you can see here, look at the richness of that. Look at the dark color, so much umami, right? So it pairs perfectly with tempura, which we're doing today. So I'm just gonna strain this over at the sink, and I'll bring it right back. All right, let's test out this tempura here. Oh, so nice. So you want to test it out. It should be like a nice lacy batter. Has that nice crispness. Now, if you were going to go the rice flour route, it will be a little bit thinner. Okay, so it definitely is a little bit lighter than using a wheat flour. I like using a wheat flour because it still has a little bit of substantial batter. So you can see that is nice. That's what you want. That is the nice crispness. It only goes in for about 30 seconds and it's ready to go, okay? I always want to have a landing whenever I'm doing any kind of fried on a plate, or you can put them on a straining rack as well. All right, that salmon has been chilled, okay? And you can see, I can press it to touch, but it doesn't fall apart, okay? So it's not completely frozen, but it's still cold. We're gonna add this, just a few of these. Remember that whenever you're adding anything frozen to hot oil, okay, that's getting battered, it will cool down the temp substantially, very quickly, okay? So you wanna keep an eye on that. So I'm not gonna add a ton to this at a time. Let those float to the top. And I'm just gonna repeat with all the other ingredients here. You can also tempura any kind of vegetable, and it's just so nice to be able to have that variety of different textures, different colors when it comes to serving it, right? All right, tempura is done, broth is done. Let's plate this up, okay? So we have a bowl. This will serve the broth. I made enough to serve about 6 to 8 or so. It is amazing as leftovers, okay? So we have some of those udon noodles, okay, that I've just dropped in. I'm gonna put those on the bottom of the bowl. Make this substantial here. Some green onion. Get some color, some texture. And I like myself some spice, so I'm gonna add a little bit of jalapeno as well. All right, let's serve that up. Oh, it just smells so good, so good. We're gonna fill that up. We have that tempura salmon, like tempura salmon, nice and crispy. These are gonna be so delicious. I'm gonna serve a few of these up. We're gonna serve some of those asparagus as well. We're gonna use some of those NAPA leaves. Get some color in there, some texture. Okay, and we're gonna finish that with some green onion, some jalapeno. So there you have it, you guys. Tempura, good catch salmon. It is so nice, that crispiness, and also I have some veggies to pair with it, some shiitake broth, absolutely delicious, an umami-bomb with some udon noodles, some spice from that chili and green onion. I can't wait to try this tempura salmon. So nice, that is such a nice flakiness. With that shiitake broth. So good. I'm Chad Sarno, you guys. This is Good Catch Cooks. We'll see you next time.